In 3, 3, 3.
We couldn't find 2 or 1. They didn't show up on stage. Just vamp. 3, you can do it. Just vamp for us. And 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. All right, they're here. Let's go. 2, 1, go. Yes. That's the show. Welcome to ScapeChatz episode 42. I'm Alan, and I'm joined by the nude boat king, Magellan. This week, we watched season 4, episodes 12 and 13 of Farscape, Kansas and Terra Firma. Kansas was written by Justin Monjo, directed by Rowan Woods, and it aired January 10th, 2003 in the US.
Oh.
Many months later, as we discussed last week. Ugh. These 2 episodes in my mind are very much paired. It's kind of an extended 2-parter. Would you agree about that?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah, I think that's the right way to view them.
Because, we left Unrealized Reality with John on hanging above Earth and freaking out. Like, oh no, what am I going to do? Where am I? Why am I here? And then the episode Kansas starts and it's like, no, we're fine. Hold on. Let's just call the crew. And I love that in this world, space travel is like efficient enough that he can just be like, here's my coordinates, get here. And then they get here. Nothing goes wrong. They don't like crash or anything. They just get him. Like everything starts fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get on Earth and things are not as they seem. It's the Back to the Future episode. We find ourselves
down to quite a few details. It is the Back to the Future episode.
It's like, yeah, it's more than just homage. It's just like, yeah, you're kind of doing that. Which I'm fine with. I think that this show could definitely use a time travel episode on Earth. Like, that's a very fun premise. And to explore, how the Team Moya can, like, adjust to time on Earth and all the comedy that is coming from that. Like, I thought this episode was one of the funniest, most charming episodes. And, you and I were talking before this about how I would have loved if we just got, like, almost an entire episode of them hanging out in John's old house. Mm-hmm. And just like watching American TV in the 80s and reacting to it. Everything about that was so good and funny and like, oh my god. That's the kind of thing I would read. I would honestly read fan fiction that was about that. And there probably is some out there. I think the Farscape fan fiction community is like pretty grassroots. Like they're coming from a place of wanting to fill in those blanks. But god, it was so fun.
Maybe we should do some dramatic fan fiction readings.
Oh, that'd be really fun.
Just in our free time.
Oh, yeah. Don't make us do an episode, please.
No, yeah.
Yeah, but people should still send us their favorite fan fiction.
I
actually know a lot of people that are going to throw things at us. I'm looking at you. But yeah, I thought Kansas, between the 2 especially, was pretty fun. And the thing I appreciated about it the most was that they don't solve things cleanly. Like, even when the whole point is, like in so many time travel stories, we need to do this right, and we need to do this in a way that nobody knows who we were or where we went. Yeah. They leave with so much damage caused, and they're like, nah, but it is fine. This is good. Nothing permanent.
I did appreciate that. I was kind of split on how I felt about just how reckless John was being. Since we just had an entire episode that was all about the fact that you can't be reckless about time travel. You have to be very careful and precise. And it kind of makes sense because they reiterated that point that reality will restructure itself if you nudge it in the right direction.
Right.
But it's still kind of stretches my suspension of disbelief when John just goes to the creek and walks up to teen John and is like, hey, here's what you got to do.
Don't let your dad do this thing. And you're like, no, what?
Wait, you can't just say that to you.
That's not going to work. It doesn't work that cleanly. And you can't just drink your own milk. Or you can't drink your family.
You can't just steal your own milk in front of your sister.
That was hilarious.
And then be like, yeah, I'm John's, 30-something-year-old friend.
Ken Scarin or whatever his name was.
Yeah. Fred Scarin, I think.
Fred Scarin, yeah. That's actually Scorpius's online handle, so please don't take that from him. But I just, like, I think that at a sort of more basic level, the fact that they do it terribly is very on point for this crew. Like, they're just not competent. They really screwed up a lot. And honestly, the other thing is that John was the only one who had that interaction with Einstein where he learned about not messing with things. Because at some point, like, one of the villains in this episode is kind of Chiana, because she, like, almost screws things up in a huge way, like, repeatedly.
Yeah.
And technically now in this timeline, if we think about how things worked out, then she's the one that John lost his virginity to.
Yep.
Which, you know, if this is, you know, the way that time travel works in this show is that they're in a different dimension, and it doesn't go forward into theirs. It just goes forward into a different, you know, future. So that doesn't like become canon the way it does in Back to the Future. That's the difference. It's not like, oh, I changed the past and now it's permanent in our future. It's like, no, in this world, now John, his first time having sex was in the back of his car with Chiana.
They now exist.
Or Karen.
Yeah. What'd you say your name was? Karen?
Chiana. Did you say Karen? No! You dummy.
Did you say Karen Shaw?
It sounds nothing like Chiana. No.
I said Chiana. Yeah, they're creating an unrealized reality in which it's pretty much exactly the same, except, John lost his virginity to Chiana, which helps explain. That's the explanation for why when John first met her, he wasn't like, wait a minute, you look very familiar, space woman.
Blue space lady. Exactly.
That would have been a tough thing to explain.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to do a plot rundown or if we want to just talk general thoughts. What do you think about that, first of all?
I mean, I have notes that cover most of the major scenes. So I just think if we have, like, because it's really like, it's just an episode where they go about trying to stop John's dad from going on the Challenger mission, and they succeed by making him rescue young John from a burning house instead, and then they go home. Yeah, that's the plot.
That's pretty much the gist of the whole thing.
So we can go wherever we find interesting, basically.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about kind of my favorite aspect of this episode is the way that they are logically thinking about the aliens on Earth and them having to grapple with not speaking the language. That right. I was really a big fan of, because in the Chiana talking to John scenes, they're careful to only have her saying like yes or no or her name. There's that great part where she tells him to drive, and she's like, drive, and then does the
hand motion,
steering wheel hands, and you can tell when she's talking to him by the water, she's kind of picking up words as he's talking, words like father, that she then uses. And then just having Aaron was so fun in this episode. From her delight at watching like Sesame Street and pronouncing Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, just pure delight with herself. And then great performance by Claudia Black, very clearly delineating when Aaron is speaking Sebastian and when she's speaking English poorly. Yeah, I just thought that was really, really a fantastic kind of distinction. And so she played that scene really well where the cop comes into their safe house, and she has to kind of mitigate any sort of risk that's going on. So I was a big fan of that.
Oh, we'll get to that scene. That was a great scene. God, there's so many moments. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just go scene by scene based on what you got.
Yeah. So one of the first ones that I was pointing out was when they're in the house and Dargo just says, the dust on this planet is playing havoc with my sinuses. And I was like, Dargo, you frowning nerd. You're such a dork. I want to like take your lunch money. It's so cute.
my asthma.
I like that they have the concept of sinuses in Lex, and although they do have very prominent noses, so there you go. And then also the recurring joke of the middle finger, I found to be pretty good.
That was fun.
Mostly because the way that it was used the best was when John is watching his like, you know, classic soap opera moment of his family getting in a fight outside of the house. And the mom's like, no, you don't want the neighbors to hear. And then the dad's like, don't yell at your sister. And John's just being his younger self's being a complete butt to his family. And he does like the read the middle finger and gives him the index, the middle, and the ring finger. And then they do a like really, really clever but quick cut to present day John. Like, ugh, oh my god, I really did that. That's so embarrassingly corny.
Yeah.
That scene was definitely a very good, like, hey, here's what's going on. You get it? The family's falling apart for XYZ. And then John, mucks up the situation immediately by going up to his sister, Olivia, am I right? And being like, hey, what's up? And then he takes their milk, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, it does a body good. And you're like, don't quote 80s commercials at her, you clown.
Yeah, don't be, like, weird around your sister.
Yeah.
That part was weird.
He's weird. Yeah, like you were saying before, he's, like, way too meddling in his family's life through the whole thing.
Yeah. Although I did like that he just wanted milk so badly that he was willing to risk it. Because you think about, like, John, he's been in space for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Or 4, I think 4 years even. 3 going on 4 years. And he was like, oh my God, milk. I love milk. I need to taste milk. And then only after he'd started drinking it did he think about the consequences of what he'd just done. I think that's such an awesome character moment right there.
Right.
Other moments of him meddling weren't as well justified to me, but that one I was a fan of. And then him talking to his mom also was a little bit better because, like, he really just wanted to talk to his mom, but then him talking to himself by the river was not smart.
Yeah, exactly. I liked the parts where he was talking to his mom also. And I just love, this is the first time that we've really seen John's mother alive. And it like completes the picture of his backstory that explains so much about who he grew up to be, because it's like his dad is the man of science who's just trying to keep things together and is very ambitious. And his mom is a very, very superstitious tarot card reading, 100% believes in like faith and the heart of the cards, like wants to, allow the higher powers take the wheel. And it's like, you combine those two things and you get exactly John Crichton, like this man of science and faith. Another Lost kind of callback for people who have seen that show. But that's also just a common like way to flesh out your character. But I always find it fascinating when you like see someone's parents, even in real life, and realize like, oh my God, you are totally the product of these two people exactly. Like that all that stuff really worked for me.
And it also elucidates John Crichton's perspective on kind of women in his life, because you can see that teen John Crichton especially was really angry with his dad because he felt like his dad treated his mom poorly. And so from that early age, he kind of developed this complex of wanting to save people, specifically the women in his life.
Yeah.
And also maybe feeling more of an emotional affinity to his mom. So you kind of have both the aspect that he wants to be the hero and save people, but also the aspect that he's, more in touch with kind of his femininity or more attuned to that side of himself. So that's kind of cool to see fleshed out as well.
Yeah, and like his interactions with the young Crichton and the young version of him just being like so naive, like almost to a cartoonish degree. And then you're just like, you can totally see that that's the kind of Crichton that like in maybe just 10 or 15 more years would be like, ugh, I am such a horrible to my parents, horrible to my girlfriend kind of person. And like this like sassy loner type. You can just see that person growing up and being full of regret for their past and then trying to like get past it and, be ambitious. Because he definitely has that ambition, but none of the kindness that the current John has. Yeah.
Did we know that he had a sister before? Is this something that had been mentioned before?
Maybe briefly. I will say that there was more than one woman in Unrealized Reality, and I didn't think that they were all his girlfriends, so I assumed that one of them was his sister.
Sure. Huh.
But yeah, now we know, and it's Olivia, and she's great.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Olivia in the second episode, I think. But
oh, definitely, yeah.
I liked her. What do you think about the casting for young John Crichton?
He's got like a Jack and Diane, like a John Cougar Mellencamp kind of look. He's like classic 80s teen rebel type. Like he would fit right in with the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
His hair was a little bit like, obnoxious, but I guess that's the kind of thing that you also will eventually grow up to shave into a John Crichton hairstyle. Which I thought was really good. He was like too cocksure You know what I mean?
Yeah. I thought, like, physically the casting was really good.
Yeah.
He looked like a young John Crichton. The face was right. Also, the casting on the mom I thought was really nice too, because it kind of looked like it was his mom. So physically, I thought the young John Crichton looked right, but yeah, he was just kind of a little too shitty for me to care about him at all.
Well, because, you know, if this was the type of show where our main character was like headstrong and obnoxious and dumb, even in the present, then we'd be like, yeah, he kind of started like that and ended like that. But John is so much more than that. John is so complex emotionally and in touch with his, like you said, his feminine side and his emotional side, and more delicate with the way that he talks to people than the young version of him does, that it just was like, you barely resemble any form of that teenage boy at this point.
Yeah, I think it's fine for, I don't know what I wanted. I was just kind of let down by the idea that young John Crichton just like yells at people and wants to fuck, and that's wants to frel, excuse me. And that's his only kind of defining character traits.
Yeah.
But you have the adult John kind of balancing it out and saying like, oh, you don't know what you're missing. So I guess like this character is going to be nothing else but kind of a ridiculous foil to the mature John. So in a way that works. And then it also kind of highlights just how much change John has undergone in his time and space. Because I wonder, like, if you look back at the beginning of season 1, if this young version of him would have made more sense. I don't know. I don't know really how much over the course of the show he's emotionally changed in that sense.
Yeah, you'd have to go back and watch season 1 to determine that, honestly. But he's definitely, I feel like even from the beginning we were like, oh, he's surprisingly not, terrible. And we go back and it's like, oh, I guess he came from a place where he was terrible, but he grew out of it. Mm-hmm. Is what we're getting at. And that's kind of like the point of having the young John be such a prominent role in this episode. And then we move on to the scene where the gang is hiding out in John's, is it his old, like his childhood home that like they don't use anymore and they moved out of?
The house they're using?
Yeah.
No, he said it was, the owners got busted for something, I think, and then it was like a house that was abandoned and being used by a gang.
It definitely, that was some good set design. It definitely looked like the house that was used by a gang or like crackheads.
Yeah.
It's just like really well set, dressed. But they're watching TV definitely. In there. They're watching their shitty 80s TV. And I mean, whatever. The Sesame Street joke is funny because it's funny to watch Aaron be like, this girl is slow when she's doing the alphabet, but also like, hey folks, it's the Henson Company, they can do that legally.
Hey,
that's like cute and charming. And even Brian Henson, like homage to his dad, that whole thing was like, oh, this is like a really nice touch. And then Chiana leaves and becomes Karen Shaw, which she jumps in. What does John name his car?
I don't
Betty
remember.
It's like Betty. I think it's Betty.
I think he says Bessie, doesn't he?
I could find this out really easily, actually. Yep, it's Old Betty. Which I love that. That's like a point that's similar to present day John, where present John names his gun Winona and past John names his truck Betty. He just loves naming things after women. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm trying to think of what everyone does in the house. Naranti is just like wearing, she looks like a Cheech and Chong reject kind of situation. Aaron is sitting watching the TV, giggling at Wheel of Fortune. Rigel does Rigel discover candy in this episode? In this episode.
Oh yeah.
that escalated so quickly.
That's really dark.
Yeah, it was like watching someone go from like, oh, this candy's pretty cool, to like, hey Johnny, got any more candy? To like, like he becomes like a horrible addict so quickly. He's like carving the pumpkin with the knife, and he's like, must cut pumpkin. And you're like, oh my god, Rigel, I'm so sorry for you, because they don't have sugar and space. It's so funny.
He says, Crichton, how illegal is this dren? You gotta get me more. I don't care what it costs.
And then he like lists off all of them. He's like, I need Snickers, Reese's Pieces, like all of the stuff. Oh my god, that was like the best side joke of the episode, in addition to the middle finger thing.
Yeah. I another thing I appreciated across this episode and the next episode was the way that the aliens interacted with Earth technology and Earth things, to react to them and show what was new to them or odd to them. Because it makes sense that space, there isn't like one singular trajectory along which technology can develop.
Right.
And so it's cool that like Earth having TV is something that they look at and they are like, what is this? What is this for? Because, we haven't seen that at all in space, any sort of idea of TV or really that many screens except for intership communications.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It is. That's a specific thing they do differently in various forms of sci-fi, because in this kind of thing, it's like, or like a Mass Effect, again, the reference I constantly bring up, aliens grew up differently than humans. Like, they lived in different dimensions, and then humans, like, joined the rest of the world, and we're in the alien world, and we're like, oh, y'all have different tech than we do. Whereas you can also have, like, the Arthur C. Clarke 2001: A Space Odyssey kind of future, where everything we see in that world is the progression that humans developed. So, like, when you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, like, the movie, you see when they're on the spaceship, it's like, oh, this place is based off of airports in the 70s and 80s. And these TVs are based off of televisions, and these computers, despite being futuristic, or like Alien does the same thing, the film Alien, where it's like, this is what that technology would have progressed as because that's human tech. But, why would they have TVs in Scare in Space, for example?
Yeah, I thought that was great. One thing, I kind of want to just jump to the B plot, or the C plot even, and knock it out. Talk about what Moya and its crew is up to.
Yeah.
First of all, does not make sense to me that they would leave Sikozu and Scorpius alone on Moya.
They should know at this point that's a horrible idea.
Does not make any sense. Because they don't trust any of them. They don't trust either of them, right?
Right.
So it's like, why did you not leave behind even one person to watch them? And like, why did you take Naranti with you? It doesn't make any sense.
You texted me that when I was watching it, and you're like, the only thing I didn't like about this episode is why the heck did they bring Naranti with them? And I'm like, realistically, it's because of the way the plot had to work out, and the fact that she saves them at several points, and they need her. Like, it's like a D&D, or like, which people are you going to bring down to the planet with you in KOTOR? And it's like, well, Naranti has like potions and spells, so we need her, even though her character development kind of sucks. It's exactly that. Like, they need her. They need her power set more than they need the character.
But they leave Sikozu and Scorpius behind on Moya for God knows what reason. Moya's really cold because it's powered down, so that nobody can find it. Nobody can find her. Moya's a girl.
She's a lady.
A lady ship. Sikozu's really cold. Brr, it's cold in here. Scorpius,
I'm wearing a blanket.
Scorpius is like, I don't care about how cold it is at all. I'm Scorpius. And then they find out.
You've done a better Scorpius impression before.
I purposely did a bad Scorpius.
Oh, okay.
I could do a good Scorpius right now.
If I wanted to. I don't want to, though.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. Pilot says, Sikozu, Scorpius, there's a bird, it says that Graza's showing up. It's Graza. Here she comes.
Oh, you want to get to the part, don't you?
Yeah.
So you're trying to get to that.
Part. I'm trying to get to the part.
Okay.
Graza's coming. Basically, Scorpius is like, we got to get the Frel out of here. Let's go. Sikozu says, no, it's a bad idea. How are they going to find us? Scorpius says, I don't really care. Sikozu says, listen, here's what we'll do. We'll let Graza board. She'll see nobody's here, and then she'll leave. Scorpius says, all right.
Pilot's like, she's going to kill me, you dummy.
And then it's like, don't worry, Pilot. If John's not here, they're not going to kill you. Which I don't think Scorpius knew for sure.
No, he didn't. He doesn't care. You're right.
Yeah, he doesn't care. It raises questions about why Scorpius is sitting on Moya, number one. Number two, why was he so willing to leave John stranded and let them all die when he worked so hard in Kubai Clam to save all their lives?
Right.
He's just a big question mark right now that doesn't make any sense. Maybe the fact that Graza was showing up outweighed his need to save John, but that doesn't seem to fly, because I feel like the whole purpose of saving John is to protect him from Graza and from the peacekeepers getting at his brain knowledge. So
yeah,
confusion there.
I mean, what I'll say is this: the only thing that made sense about Scorpius in this episode to me was like, why is he okay with the peacekeepers coming on the ship what is he doing? What is his whole plan? Why does he care? Like, he doesn't even want to hide. So Cozy's like, we have to hide. And he's like, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. And then, the thing, the best part of the episode.
We should just read this exchange.
Oh, yes.
All right. So if you search for the phrase "well done" in the script, you'll be able to find it.
I found it.
Would you like to be Braca or Scorpius?
What are you asking? Of course I want to be Braca.
Okay. All right. So Scorpius says, "I'll be fine. Go." And then she leaves. Braca is walking around. He comes down the ladder.
Check tier 9. I'll go below. You're dead.
How many aboard the Leviathan, Braca?
30 peacekeepers. And Grazer.
Will they follow you down here?
No.
Captain. Then Scorpius reaches out, grabs him by the head, pulls him close, and kisses him on the forehead. Well done.
And then I lay my hands on your face as we stand and look at each other. It's good to see you, sir. Oh my god!
Yes.
Oh my god!
Yes!
Oh my god!
Oh, I'm so happy.
Such a brief but powerful, amazing scene.
Oh.
We are goofing. I am so happy that he kissed him on the forehead, and that's perfect. Everything's good. This is all I wanted out of the Braca development. He's back where he belongs.
Yeah, amazing.
Under Daddy's wing. Literally, Daddy has wings. He's like leather wings in his suit, and he got a smooch for being a good boy. For being a good boy.
It makes you wonder a couple things. Number one, so this was a deleted scene, the Braca talking to Scorpius scene, where he's like, you messed up. Do you think they deleted it because it doesn't make sense with this? Option 1. Or option 2, the intention was that in that scene they were doing a performance in front of Grazer to convince Grazer that Braca wasn't on his side anymore.
I will stick to my theory that they cut that scene just for time because that episode was already really busy. But I think the choice to cut specifically that one is like, if you did that, then some people, like, you don't want people to be too surprised. There needs to be, like, some seed of, like, we didn't really see why Braca left. Like, maybe he just left and he's planning to come back. And that's, like, canonically, that's what happened. In the episodes, that's exactly how it worked out. Is he pretended for a little while, and we don't know why he left Scorpius. But, hey, he did.
But this is
Whereas if you have the deleted scene, then it's like that.
This is the kind of twist, though, that I feel like you can make it as surprising as you want because it's so true to the characters.
It really
and it
is.
feels like such a release. Like, okay, I'm not crazy. They are still best buds. So that's one question, which maybe isn't a super essential question. Second question, in the episode where Braca like flies the Prowler himself to destroy Moya and messes up, did he, number one, I guess he didn't know Scorpius was alive, right?
Yeah.
So wonder about that. 2, was he actually trying to kill Crichton?
Ooh, yeah.
Seems like maybe he was.
Well, yeah, I mean, killing Crichton is good for him. Either way, killing Crichton is good for him.
Because why?
If he's working for Scorpius, then killing Crichton is what he wants. Because at some point, Scorpius still doesn't like Crichton, even though he has the wormhole knowledge.
Right, but so now that Braca's in the picture and we know he's still on Scorpius's side, we really have to start thinking about what do the two of them want. Braca tells him, I think later in this episode, that Grazer is attempting to orchestrate a peace deal with the Scarans.
Yes.
Which means that Scorpius and Braca do not want there to be peace. They want to destroy the Scarans still. And still, accurate. I think Scorpius is harboring the belief that the way to do that is with a wormhole weapon.
So he needs John to get the wormhole weapon.
Yes.
So then I think that Braca just like knew that. Sorry, I think that Braca knew that and he was just like, I'm going to not kill Crichton. I'm going to like intentionally mess up this, attack and then be like, oh, I'm really sorry, Mom.
That's the way I'm choosing to read it because it makes Braca badass.
Exactly. It makes it seem like everyone in the background was more competent than we could have ever imagined.
Yeah. And so great. Now the band's back together. They're best buds.
Yay.
And here we go. Lots of fun in store.
The kiss was so pitch perfect. Like, seriously.
Oh my God. It was amazing.
And on the forehead too. Not even like, it's like very dominating. Ugh, I don't even. We could talk about it forever.
Yeah.
Speaking of dominating,
very sexually charged.
Yes,
in, like,
as it should be.
Just the right way.
Right. But speaking of sexually dominating, I guess, Dargo had a great moment in this episode that was really, really well handled, that we have to talk about, which is, so they're in the Coke house, as I like to call it, and they're putting on costumes so that they look like, oh, coincidentally, it's Halloween, so if we dress in weird costumes, then it'll look like we're just a bunch of trick-or-treaters. And then a cop comes into the house, and that's the part where Aaron is, like, trying to handle the situation, and she's like, oh, that's like my sister, that's my grandma, oh, Granny, you're so weird, that's a puppet. She, like, throws Rigel on the floor, and later he's like, you broke my frelling spine, what are you doing? That was hilarious. And then Dargo is in a blue football jersey, like a cute boy, and the cop sees him, and he's a tall man, and the cop says, you know, who are you? What are you doing? He's like, oh, this is just a mask. But, like, Dargo doesn't know enough English to, like, to defend himself. So he's just like, costume. I don't actually remember exactly what he says.
So at the beginning of the episode, when they're first in the house, and Aaron's trying to convince everybody to learn English with her, Dargo very pointedly says, Chiana's already taught me a few words in English. Yes, no, bite me. That's all I need to know.
Right. And then he just says those things. Yeah.
And so then the sheriff says, when he's there, you're a little old to be dressing up for Halloween, aren't you, pal? Which on its own is a confusingly worded yes or no question. Like, there's no right. It's a grammatically complex thing for Dargo to have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
So first he says no, and then the sheriff doesn't really buy it. Then he says yes, and then he says, bite me? And the sheriff gets really mad, says, okay, take off the mask, pal, now. Take off the mask. And then Dargo has his Qualta blade, which is not a great idea. Aaron just, like, bites him out. Oh, not bites him out, knocks him out. Naranti has, like, a powder that says, see what you expected to see, like, see him remove the mask and then go. And then Dargo removes the mask, and the cop expected to see a tall black man there. That was what he thought was going to happen.
They just charged that 1 second with so much imagery that you're like, whoa, Farscape, you're trying to say something. Good job.
Yeah.
And it's like, we were talking about social commentary last week and how the gender stuff in Kublai Clan felt really ham-fisted, and it's like, y'all can do it. It's this. This is exactly how you go about, like, this, and also the politics of Terra Firma. Show that the Farscape writing team knows exactly how to say something without shoving it down your throat. Because that scene says things about xenophobia, which is very topical for this episode and Terra Firma, police brutality, and police racism, all in one, like, 2-second shot. And you're like, yes, that's exactly how you do it. Everything worked out perfectly right there.
Yep. You don't have to dwell on it. It's just like, that's what it is. That's what he expected to see. Okay, let's move on. Yeah.
Just the way that we make assumptions about the people around us. Like, even just, like, the fact that he's wearing a football jersey, and, like, who else would wear a football jersey but a big black guy? Like, oh, yeah. And you're from Florida, so it's, like, the South, and there's all, you know, a lot of, like, that whole thing. It's really, that was really handled well.
Really cool moment, yeah. Assuming that they did that on purpose, which they must have, right?
I think this is just a thing in general that I think about media or art, is the goal of the artist is to let the consumer or the purveyor of the art make their own meaning out of it.
You're right.
It doesn't matter what they intended.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. What else? What next?
Well, there's the really shitty neighbor who I like that if she was the type of, like, cartoon stereotype neighbor who, like, yells and is like, oh, I'm gonna call the cops on you, crazy folk, then I would have hated her. But she never speaks. She just sees them and goes, and they're like, hi, I'm an alien.
She keeps walking in and seeing stuff and doesn't get runaway scared, but gets wide-eyed and, like, fundamentally terrified.
Yeah.
In a way that's really cool.
They really handle well the isolation that you feel when you're the only person in the world that's seen aliens. Like, it's like it's mostly handled for humor, but the way they do it at the end actually made me really sad of this episode. But, like, the neighbor stuff was, like, very well done for that kind of character. And
they have when Dargo takes the police cruiser for a joyride And he kind of hops in and he's like, machine, go, time to drive or whatever. And then he has to negotiate and figure out the pedals, and throws her the middle finger as he's leaving.
Right. Or when Chiana, the first time they meet the neighbor, is she comes out of the house wearing the dress, and she goes up to the neighbor and just throws the middle finger and like puts it in her face, like, hi, symbol of friendship. How you doing? The neighbor's like, hooligans. Doesn't even know. She doesn't even say anything, but it's just like very funny. And then the next scene that I have in my notes is the part where Chiana has sex with young John Crichton, which that's weird. Yeah, it's real weird. But I mean, we've said the most that we can say about it. It's just strange, and they don't need to handle it because unrealized realities. But yeah, she does a lot of weird stuff in this episode that felt like she was just antagonizing for the sake of having fun, which is kind of Chiana, but it was like, occasionally weird.
I think we've kind of lost the thread on Chiana's character a little bit. It just kind of felt like she was a plot device this episode. And then I wasn't really feeling or understanding what she was doing. But I will say the idea of her having a genuine emotional connection with the rebellious young side of John Crichton makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it does.
And kind of fulfills their weird sexual tension that we've not loved in the past in a way that is still very weird, but also feels right.
They managed to get away with it without it being creepy because it's not our John. Because we know that our John went on to love Aaron. And it's like, oh, but there was clearly always some like weird hidden thing between him and Chiana, and now it's just been paid off. It's like, oh, she probably will never ever want to do it with the real John again because she's done it. It's been done in a way that's like clean, and we can put that behind us because that's the nice thing about Dimensions is you can say that's what happened in this one. Anyways, back to ours where that's not canonical or whatever.
Yeah,
it works. The part where she knocks out his girlfriend later doesn't work. That's like, that was like hilarious. You're like, no, what are you doing? Why do you ruin everything? But I mean, ultimately, the thing that almost ruins their plan the most this episode is actually not Chiana. It's a lamp in the crack den. Just because later when the way that they get John's father to not go on the Challenger mission is to make it seem like his son is burning in that house in a fire and he needs to go rescue him, and that means he's going to be late for the ship and then not get on it. That's like the simple way that they do it. And they set up everything and they hide and they light the fire, and then he goes in and they're like, good, everything's good, and he hits his head on a freaking lamp and gets knocked out. You're like, damn it. Defeated by circumstance. And they pull him out, and then a bunch of cops come in, and the other thing by the way about the cops that I really didn't like about them was that like the first scene, they're like, oh, there's bad people in here. Second scene, we have a warrant to search and seize their house. And you're like, no, wait. You don't get warrants that fast, pigs. Come on. Jeez. And then they go into the house, and Aaron like punches one of them in the back of the head. She's like, oh, come in, please. Destroyed. And then Dargo gets the other one. And as they're waking up from getting knocked out, one of them gets Naranti's powder where she says, oh, forget everything. None of this happened. Everything's good. And she's about to do it to the other one. And she doesn't get to because they're like, no, you really have to go. And it's like, it would have taken 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's taking us as long to say you have to go as it would have taken me to do the dust in his face.
And I was like, based on the way this episode ended and the way Terra Firma started, I kind of would have liked the idea that mistake paid off. Like that guy went on to become a conspiracy theorist who was then proven right 20 years later or whatever, or 13 years later, I think.
Because it just seems like that's kind of a big deal that guy didn't get the dust. And maybe it is, and we just haven't seen it pay off yet, but
I don't think so.
It was underwhelming when they went into Terra Firma and they hadn't changed the timeline at all.
Exactly. Well, and the part that I said was sad was that the payoff for that guy's like being the only person who remembers seeing them is the most come on, why are you so mean to these characters scene, which is just that classic he's in the interrogation room and he's like, I saw aliens and they had a big tongue, you gotta believe me, and then there's 3 X-Files looking mother frellers outside and they're like, ugh, this weirdo anyways, he's gonna be committed, and you're like, oh, come on. Ugh. I don't like that trope. I don't like the he saw aliens but no one else is gonna believe him, ha 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 ha, because next episode it's no, here's what happens when humans meet aliens. It works out sometimes okay. It doesn't have to be like the stereotype of like the crazy person, whatever.
Only thing I have left to say about this episode is Erin's outfit was real fun. Her kind of double flared
her like 60s disco outfit?
Yeah.
It's only 20 years out of date. It's only like 10 years out of date, really. In that world, which I kind of was like, oh, she can walk down the street and no one's giving her looks because, yeah, that works. And then the episode ends with them getting back on the ship and everyone's there. Like the dad and the government Jones and government Kimberly and they know about everything.
Hello, Earth people.
Hello, Earth people. It's me, your dad.
Welcome to Moya.
Welcome to your home. And then John's last line is, what does he say?
I kind of hated this last line.
Was it a bass or a trout?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get it.
I think.
It says it here.
It says it where?
Yeah, the explanation that the transcript gives for that last line is John responds with the question that he's used before to verify Jack's identity, something pertaining to a small private moment between father and son that no one else would know. Was it a bass or a trout? Which was that something I should have recognized?
I guess it was used to verify the ancient, whether the ancient was really his dad or not.
Okay.
So it's kind of a callback in that sense, but it's so esoteric that it doesn't land emotionally. Because the line before it where Jack says, "Welcome home, son. We've been waiting for you a long time."
That's a great way to do it.
Perfect final line to an episode. And then it just goes a little bit too long. And John says that line. And it's like, you could have just started the next episode with that line.
Or end the episode with him pulling the gun out. And just be like, because that also establishes that he's done this before and knows that it's not always a good thing to see your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of I like to imagine that the fan community at the time was just like, looking into that line, like trying to remember where it was from because they were watching this show live. Like, wait, what is that? What is that reference? And then like some early internet message board was like, the line, "Is it a bass or a trout?" is a reference to a human reaction from back in season 1. And you're like, whoa, cool.
Yeah, remember that several years ago?
Yeah, that's, I mean, it was a year and a half ago for us, probably, approximately. I don't know when we watched the reaction. Yeah. I have the date somewhere, but whatever. That was Kansas, though. I liked it a lot. I had a lot of fun. John, by the way, last thing in my notes, says that dumb thing when he's like disappearing because the young Crichton is like dying from smoke.
We forgot about that, to talk about that stupid part.
It's just Back to the Future again. They really just did that.
It's just dumb.
I'm Casper the freaking joke.
I really thought that was stupid.
But he's Casper the joke.
I know.
It's not even a rhyme. It's like a slant rhyme. It's not... then they didn't pay off in it at all. They're like, well, what's funny is that Naranti's like, go use your invisibility to do something cool. And then we get that really touching, sad scene where he goes to his mom and he's invisible. And he's like, oh, Mom, you need to tell Dad to go to the house. And then just that, like, this part felt like a little bit like too much. Where he's like, also don't, like, when you start to feel the pain, don't like, he's basically telling, I don't know if he was trying to, like, prevent her from dying, as being like, hey, when you first start to feel the pain, go get diagnosed, because early diagnosis might save you, or if he was saying, like, don't fight it.
I think he was saying, go get diagnosed, but then he caught himself, and he was like, well,
I'll break everything if I do that, yeah.
That would change everything.
I thought it was the idea was that he ran out of time because she already ran away. But no, you're actually... Well, yours makes more sense.
Kind of both, I think.
Kind of both.
I think she ran away and then after, like in the moment, he realized, oh, I shouldn't have been saying that.
Right.
Yeah.
He lived his whole adult life without her. You can't change that. It's like Life is Strange. You can't try and change something that huge. Ugh, people should play Life is Strange. Good game. Good game. Very similar to this episode. Speaking of this episode, let's read its background information.
All right, background info. The exterior sequences were filmed in Sylvania Waters, a suburb of Sydney.
I guess it's pretty easy to make every suburb look the same. So,
yep.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
There's a lot of debate about whether to use footage of the Challenger explosion, but in the end, it was decided to show what Crichton was thinking about. I thought they handled it tastefully. They kind of just flashed it, and then that was it.
Yeah, that's like, that footage is very triggering for a lot of people, and is like a big no-no when it comes to like talking about American history and in, the 20th century, like specifically the footage. But the part where he's like in the ship with them and he's in Lola and he's like, here's how it happened is enough. And also the brief shot of it is enough.
Because I think you just need that visual reminder to kind of remind the audience this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but you don't need to show the whole thing.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people would probably note notice the event or like recognize the event more from that snippet of footage than from it being called the Challenger explosion.
Right. Good point.
Jamie Croft, who played teenage Crichton, asked Ben Browder's advice on how to speak his lines. That showed.
Yeah. Slowly and with a weird accent. He did it.
Mm-hmm. Crichton had earlier recalled that he'd lost his virginity to Karen Shaw. This episode reveals that Karen was in fact Chiana.
This is what I'm saying. Is this piece of trivia basically backpedaling on what we just said?
Well, I'm going to open the Karen Shaw page on the Farscape wiki and see if that elucidates anything.
No, it goes to Chiana.
No, it doesn't.
It goes to a picture of Chiana.
Yeah, but the article says Karen Shaw. I'm just going to read this out.
Right. Yeah.
Karen Shaw was a young woman John Crichton knew in his youth. She is most notable to Crichton because she was the one to whom he lost his virginity. In reality, Karen was a time-traveling Chiana whom he met in the fall of 1985. It is unclear whether there was a real Karen Shaw whose identity the teenage Crichton mixed up with Chiana's, or if he simply mistook that as her name when they first met. She told young Crichton her name was Chiana after she instinctively turned the music volume way up, and he thought she said Karen. She then cried out, Shia! In excitement, and he thought she meant her surname was Shaw.
Oh my god.
Her appearance didn't seem out of place to him as he believed her to be wearing a Halloween costume.
I hate this show.
Later, when Naranti used some of her powder to make young John forget his encounter with his older self and the others, Chiana stepped in and placed a suggestion in his mind that he not forget Karen Shaw. Years later, Crichton would remember Karen Shaw as the woman he lost his virginity to, but he never made the connection that it was Chiana. Maybe what happened is just that he remembered the name because of the powder, but he forgot what she looked like.
Yeah, but
that's the best.
But what we're saying is our John Crichton did lose his virginity to Chiana.
It's hard to know.
We're talking about like time travel theory. Like we could get into this real deep if we wanted to. But
it's hard to know if the restructuring means that the people who fixed it are also restructured, or if it just means that the reality around them is restructured.
Yeah, and I mean, leave comments. I know people love to discuss the crunchy mechanics of this show, so go ahead and if you want to debate this in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. Despite his numerous guest appearances, this is the first time since Premiere that Kent McCord actually plays the real version of Jack Crichton.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Crichton's question about a bass or a trout is a reference to a human reaction.
There you go.
Browder was hoping for an open-mouthed Roman kiss when Braca reaffirmed his loyalty to Scorpius.
Wait, what's a Roman kiss? Is it just like a French kiss? Please.
Dear Google, I have a question for you. Roman kiss. I don't know if it's a real thing or if he's just making it up.
It's a kiss. He wanted an open-mouthed kiss, and he was right. He was right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but according to... There's nothing officially called a Roman kiss, according to Google, but I think he just wanted them to actually smooch. It works with him on doing it on the forehead, though. Both of those things work. Yeah. One is a little bit more queer than the other one, but it's, they both get the same idea across.
Mm-hmm. Justin Monjo had finished the script for the episode long before the prior episode was written and nagged David Kemper to ensure that the two episodes tied up closely.
Thanks, Justin.
The stunt car's owner was not impressed with Anthony Simcoe's driving, nor the number of retakes required. Okay.
He's driving on the wrong side of the road because it's Australia.
Mm-hmm. The series firmly establishes the Earth year in which the episode takes place, 2003. This confirms that the events of Premiere occur in 1999, the year it first aired.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
The episode incorporates footage of several real-life TV programs, including the game show Wheel of Fortune, including a brief glimpse of Vanna White, and Sesame Street, which includes a brief glimpse of Kermit the Frog, which, like Farscape, is produced by the Jim Henson Company. At one point, Aaron refers to Rigel as a Kermit toy. Another Henson creation, Cookie Monster, is also heard.
That girl is slow is still my favorite part of that whole thing. That's the background info, correct?
Yep.
Great. I'm going to take the Moyabag this time. Can you hand me the bag real quick? Thank you. Oh, that's heavy. Ugh, what does that smell? Jeez. Okay. I'm going to dig into this, and then we're going to come back and discuss the next episode, Terra Firma. Hello again to my beautiful Scuppies. It is time for the Moyabag, and I'm Alan, here to read your feedback. I'm going to just preface this by saying that it's very late in the evening when I'm recording this, and I'm not going to do a lot of editing on it other than like for sound quality stuff, so apologies for that. It is for the purpose of getting the episode out on time because it's Basically, supposed to be up in 6 hours from now. So, apologies if this sounds a little rough. I did my best at the midnight hour, kinda literally. Last week, our episode had some issues. Good issues being that, hey, our friend Hugo got to be on and we discussed fun episodes. Not so good first episode, amazing second one, and a great guest discussion. That was a good time. However, we had some audio editing issues if you were trying to listen to it live, and you might have noticed that episode 41, especially in the second half, was a little choppy when it first went up. So we took it down for a couple days, and then we didn't have time to fix it, because we're very busy boys here out in space. But we eventually did, and it's now up on all of your podcast listening places. And that is why I made the biggest effort I possibly could to make sure that 42, this one, goes up exactly on time. So you're welcome. Please don't make me stay up this late to edit again. Thank you. I love you. We didn't get any tweets, presumably because of the whole Twitter or the whole episode issue. But we did get 2 emails from Anstatic Dax.
I put a shot to your system.
The first one is about Kansas. Greetings, Alan and Magellan. Hope all is well wherever you guys are. What state are you in anyways? I can't recall if you've ever said on the podcast. Dax, of course we've said on the podcast. We're up in space. It says right here, well, I'm up in Hurglesblorgle. That's a planet several parsecs away from us. We're nowhere near that. But it's cool that you're, a galaxy neighbor, I guess. Anyways, I know it's been ages since I've written an email. Like I mentioned via Twitter, I've been very overwhelmed with work. Things are slowing down, and that's great. I may not have been writing in, but I have been listening and keeping up with the weekly podcast, I assure you. Thank you, Dax. I was a bit surprised to hear you didn't like the past few episodes, the clams one in particular. I don't recall if I liked them the first time I watched the series, but this go around, I was plenty entertained. I'm definitely enjoying Season 4 a lot more than I thought I would. While not as high as Season 3 in quality, I'm finding myself appreciating it more the second time around. Yeah, the clams episode, Kubai Clam, I respect its politics, and I think it's dated and dumb, and the jokes don't land. That's kind of the short and long of it, Maybe if you are less, if you care less about that stuff, then it's a fine episode. This brings us to Kansas. I think it may be my favorite of Season 4. Rock on. But if I remember correctly, it's more like a Part 1. Maybe the next episode will be my favorite if it goes the way my memory is telling me it will. I think it's best to consider these 2 as one extra long episode. I agree. We have John floating in space above Earth trying to get to Moya. He gets in contact. Dargo comes with him. Why does he let everyone else tag along? Which, hey, we said the same thing in our episode. Good catch, Dax. If I was him, I would have thought it would be a simple fly out, pick up John, turn around mission. Bring Aaron, because but what the hell is Rigel or Grandma gonna do? Good points. Second, I love a good time paradox in my sci-fi like everybody else, and never have difficulty following along. But this one doesn't fit. John says Einstein told him that if he returned to Earth before he left, it would screw things up. So he goes down to check himself. Basically, what Dax is saying here, just because this is a longer email, is that all he did to change the past is land there and interfere with things, and it doesn't make sense that that simple change led to John's father being the pilot of the Challenger mission. I agree. I don't think that that is the moment where the timeline changed, and you kind of get into that as well in this letter. And I read all of it. We're on a timer here. Little hair dye and Chemicord looks very young. Yes, no, bite me. That's all I need to know. Good lines. Fifth, who wouldn't want to have their first time be with a gray alien from the future that you can't remember because you were drugged and almost died in a fire? Sixth, oh Braca, oh Scorpius, oh Braca and Scorpius, oh holy ship. It's not a ship, it's canon. Seventh, Aaron introduces Dargo as her brother, so when Granny drugs the cop and tells him to see the human you expect, why does the cop expect to see a black man? Racism. And speaking of that cop, if memory serves, all his trauma pays off next episode. It does not. I think. Sorry, I'm reading this email kind of live. I'll send the second part of this email when I watch the next episode. My break is almost up, so I have back to work to go to. I love that we're getting emails while people are on their breaks at work. That's great that you took the time to do that. Anyway, speaking of things not being there, I was way off with what I thought was going to happen in Terra Firma. And then they're basically like, oh, I thought Terra Firma was going to be some stuff that happens way later, but I can't tell you because it gets weird. As to what did actually happen, well, it was kind of a letdown for me after the super fun episode that was Kansas. The reaction to first contact with aliens was almost non-existent. They didn't quarantine them, they gave them a house. The press should have been going apeshit crazy. But when we see them, there's only maybe 5-6 reporters. There was no freaking out, like you just know there really would be if an alien ship suddenly appeared in the sky. I liked specifically that choice. I think that was an intentional choice by the writers to kind of make the episode less of a slog to get into, because it's not like, oh, we got to deal with all of the mechanics of having aliens on Earth. Oh my god, how are they going to be dissected? Like, you know, a human reaction to that stuff. It had the humans freaking out. This episode is very much a parallel to that, and doesn't need to show us all of the, like, minutia of what humans would do and how they would freak out if there were aliens on Earth. He must be so torn, referring to Braca, being briefly reunited with his true love Scorpius, only to have his mind filled with false memories of fantastic sex. How does that work? Does he just accept that they did it and not allow himself to doubt it, or does his mind create explicit memories of them having sex? I think maybe he imagines that he was with her but thinking of Scorpius the whole time. Wait a minute, I didn't read that part before. That's actually the correct interpretation. He's imagining that. Good job, Dax. You're finally getting it. Would their ship name be Brachius? Skorka? I kind of like Skorka. I also like Scorpus. Okay, I'm losing my mind now. Time to end this email before I give myself flashbacks. Take care, guys, and as always, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on these episodes. Thank you, Dax. Those were a wonderful pair of emails. Absolutely wonderful. Finally, our Reddit thread over on reddit.com/r/Farscape, where a lot of the comments were actually from me being like, the episode's broken. Sorry. Thank you, Leo Chris. Sorry. It's lots of apologizing, because that's my brand. Top comment is from Leo Chris. Hey, Hugo, what's up? Easily the worst non-Maldus episode of Farscape. My first reaction, that's our line. My first reaction of this was to go harsh, and then a second later, you know what, that sounds about right. I don't have much to say about it except it sucks. It's not good, can't defend it. Haven't seen it in a while, but I didn't feel the desire to watch it. Jeremiah Crichton was pretty boring, but I didn't remember how generally offensive Kublai Clan was until we talked about it before we recorded. Secrets. It definitely feels like a rehash of previous plot elements done worse. Can I just casually apologize for being an awkward laugh track throughout the discussion of unrealized reality? Hey, hopefully people enjoyed the discussion anyways, and thanks to Alan and Magellan for having me on in the first place. It was much appreciated. And then Blue Blaze Spear said, hey, you got in there for one. Right on. Hugo, I wouldn't say that you were a laugh track so much as you were a co-pilot in our adventure. I legitimately, while recording it, didn't feel at all like you were just kind of like sitting there for it. Although, I can imagine if someone less conversationally inclined than you wanted to guest on the episode and have that just mean like, I want to sit on the episode and listen to you guys record it live, I'd be okay with that. But you definitely contributed good stuff, and I appreciated your voice and your opinions. Here's a long comment from Blue Blaze Spear that got the ball rolling. Watching this show in the original run, Kublai Clan is the one episode that I still clearly recall watching and saying, yeah, what's going on here isn't kosher, right? Gender politics were heavy-handed to the point of undercutting the message, and in general, I'm not a fan of any show that presents an entire planet of one thing, whether that be mindless warriors, or mystics, or misogynists. That's a great point. Star Trek does that a lot, where they are like, it's a planet full of beats, and we gotta pick them. There are times in Farscape where things get heavy and dark and dramatic for long stretches, and then we get a ridiculous lighthearted episode as a palate cleanser. Whether these cleansers work as good episodes is debatable, but I think they do the job of relieving some of that bigger narrative tension. I always think of Unrealized Reality as a palate cleanser in the other direction. We've been navigating ridiculous fluff for the last few episodes where there's zero narrative tension and everyone's treading water, and then this episode comes along and it's such a relief. Suddenly, there are stakes again and dramatic tension, and it's a sharp reminder, that's weirdly written, that there is a Farscape story to be told and that they're finally getting back to it. Rock on. To me, Kansas and Terraformer are great episodes. I think it's a very Star Trek trope to say, what if we took our crew and dropped them into modern-day Earth? They've done it with various degrees of success, but Farscape crushes it. It makes more sense narratively, and the execution is satisfying in ways that I wouldn't have predicted before seeing the episodes. Ugh, Blue Blaze Spear, you are just the lord of commenting. You know that? Very thought-provoking. Mr. J Handle says, if there was ever a time to have a moratorium on reading summaries of future episodes, I wish I could convince you to stop that now. The rest of Season 4 will be so much more fun if you don't already know everything. We do need to stop reading the summaries. Right now we're reading the wiki summaries on the Encyclopedia Project, and they're much better about not spoiling like stuff in the episode. But we might even drop those towards the end because I agree with you that it's going to get pretty nasty. We're not reading Netflix summaries anymore. Absolutely not. People talking about the link not working because I had to take the episode down. Sorry about that. And episode stuff. Domain 101 said, I expect a certain amount of professionalism from my hobbyist podcasters. What the hell are we paying for here? You are paying for our love. Thank you. Finally, the last long comment from Dr_Apocalypse. Kubai Clam had the right idea going, but it's writing an odd gender agenda. Can't combine those words. It's very late. Ended up making it a bit of a dud. I can forgive it a little bit since the times have changed a great deal since its premiere. What I absolutely disliked is how they represent the female members. These are the good guys we're supposed to be rooting for, especially since previous episodes have touched on female empowerment and a hint of homo/bisexuality, but they made them as unlikable as possible. The episode was all over the place and it felt like it didn't know what it wanted to be. Unrealized reality is where season 4 really begins, with the exceptions of S4, E1, E3, and Einstein steals the show and his dialogue with John is great and unsettling slightly. We get to see firsthand the chaos and destruction that wormhole travel can cause, even without it being used as a weapon. The episode sets the tone for future things. That is exciting, by the way. I managed to catch the cast before it was taken down. As always, thanks for the discussion, and keep up the good work. Yeah, so it's all up now. Everyone should listen to the episode if they haven't, or if they heard it and thought it was bad at first. We fixed it through audio magic. Last thing I want to talk about, I think we brought it up in the end of this episode, but I'm just going to say it again here. Netflix is going to be taking Farscape off of their service soon. So if you were worried if that puts a dent in our plans for how we're going to do this at this show, it does not. Partly because we're going to have several more episodes recorded by then and only have a couple of the show remaining to do, like 4 or 5 I think we counted. 4 of Farscape, not even, that's like 2 episodes of our podcast. And second of all, if we have those episodes remaining, we will figure out another way to watch them. We have our methods. There are people out there who are like, do I want to send you my DVDs? Don't send us your DVDs. That's very nice of you. You keep your DVDs. That's great, though. Rock and roll. I say rock and roll a lot. Anyways. I think that's the Moyabag. We got the red threads. We got the Twitter. No tweets this week, but ScapeChatz is where you can send those. And we got the emails, scapechatz@gmail.com. Enjoy the rest of this discussion as we dive into Terra Firma. And we're back. The second episode that we watched this week was Terra Firma, which was written by Richard Manning, directed by Peter Androkidis, and it aired January 17th, 2003 in the US. How was that break, Magellan?
I stretched both of my legs.
That's what matters. That's what you need to stretch more than anything else for podcasting, is your legs. Because who can podcast without legs? Terra Firma was it felt to me like the part 2 of Kansas. These are definitely 2 episodes that pair well with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think both thematically and the fact that they are pretty much literally sequels, because Kansas, as we discussed, ends with John seeing his father, and then Terra Firma picks up a millisecond later after that terrible ending, and is followed up by them being like, hey, so do you have like a cool thing going on here? Can we like hang out and party with you guys? Like, how's that sound? And then John's like, I don't know, my alien friends. It's like introducing your parents to your college friends. They're like, we have like a different dynamic. We don't really like to, like when you've moved out for a while, and then it is kind of that though, except on a big scale. And
I would love to see that sequence where you like pull up in your van and your college friends step out the way that John's alien friends stepped out of the shuttle one by one.
Yeah. They're all like, yo, squad! And like, do they have like guns out and stuff? It's ridiculous. They're very ready
It's also, that sequence is also funny because it's like his dad's looking at all these crazy aliens. Oh my god. It's a big beardy guy. Oh my god, it's like a little puppet man. Oh my god, it's a woman with black hair.
Whoa. Right. It's like,
it's crazy.
That moment really reminded me that they're not that weird. Like, Dargo's a little strange to look at, but Aaron's just a person, and Gianna's just a person with makeup, so is Sikozu, and so is Naranti. So it's like, all right, Rigel's weird. That's kind of it. There's no like tentacle monster or like what aliens actually probably are, which is something incomprehensible that science fiction creators haven't even conceived of. They're just like, no, they're just people, which kind of goes hand in hand with what this episode is about, which is the interactions between humans and aliens, kind of in a Human Reaction 2.0 sort of way. And what I really liked about it was that it felt like Human Reaction at the time definitely was like, oh, this is the worries and anxieties that are stemming from John's mind about what the Earthlings would do if they found the aliens. And those are like, well, clearly he's worrying more than he needs to. Because realistically, as we see in this episode, there are absolutely questions of loyalty and trust that need to be dealt with and are dealt with in this episode. But then there's also just like, they get to live at John's house. They get to like almost have Christmas dinner with him.
Well, it's not his house. It's like a special house set up for the aliens.
Or yeah, they do. I really, really, speaking of that, appreciated how much time they spent explaining why other humans weren't like bothering them constantly. Like every time they go to a new setting, they're like, yeah, police set up a huge barricade around here. No one's coming. Like we went to the mall and they had like 10 people around, like 50 people surrounding the mall. And it's like, yeah, okay. Because they wouldn't blend in. They do need to be shepherded around by police and by CIA and whatever, but at least they weren't experimented on terribly.
Right, there is an immediate dissection like there is in a Human Reaction. But but John's fears are still substantiated in that humanity is freaking the Frel out at the existence of aliens. I think one of my favorite parts of the episode is the little newscast that happens on the TV that is kind of in the background, where the reporter is just talking about the pure existential dread that some people are going through at the existence of aliens. Like you get that taste of how it's psychologically screwing up Earth, but without, and so you understand the stakes of what's going on without the kind of like horrific, scary Area 51 style overtones of a Human Reaction.
Yeah, exactly. And I always find that stuff really interesting too, when the people who discovered aliens weren't the like old gentleman in the South who thought he saw a saucer and then oops, turned out it was real. Like, no, it was just like a dude who went into space. Like, he was a spaceman. Astronauts are the people who are going to discover aliens. You know, it's not like some regular, and it is kind of a regular dude, like whether or not you consider John regular as an astronaut. But speaking of regular dudes, we get kind of like reintroduced to the state of things with his Earth family. We get to see more of his sister, who we talked about in the first episode. She's pretty okay. Is that Caroline? Is that accurate?
Her name?
I got a lot of the... Yeah.
I thought it was Olivia. Or
Olivia, I'm sorry. You're right. Caroline is like his girlfriend or something.
His ex-girlfriend lady.
Yeah, that sounds exactly right. And it is right. I just confirmed it. Olivia and Caroline get introduced. DK got married, which is infuriating because I thought DK would wait for John. No, DK... They were like, "Oh, you both married. You married this nerd," and she's like, "Oh, I'm a nerd too. Like, we're like cute nerds." Okay, DK, I'm happy for you. John has a dumb little cousin who's like a super pervert because there's that dumb like recurring thing where he's the little kid with the camcorder, and it's like Chiana and Sakozu are sunbathing by the pool in the house that they have, and he's like filming them in their bikinis, and you're like, ugh, come on, dude. He's just like, that's actually like a very early 2000s, like the dumb cousin or like the dumb brother.
Yeah, with the camcorder.
With the camcorder, yeah. Just that archetype doesn't exist anymore because that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you carry a camera around? But
I feel like it probably still exists because now everybody's got a camera on their phone.
So would it just be the dude film? I mean, like right now it'd be like the kid who's like, "Oh, I'm gonna film this for the Vine," and he's gonna like do dumb viral stuff. Yeah, that's the closest equivalent. Yeah, pretty much. So that was cute to me. And then there was a lot of like dangerously quotidian stuff where I was like, "Oh, we're kind of like settling." And I kept wondering, when is this episode gonna get weird? When is it gonna get tragic or frustrating? And then they introduce the sort of moral quandary of the episode, which is John, for whatever reason, agrees with his dad that they should give somebody on the planet Earth an opportunity to explore Moya and explore what's going on in the ship and learn their technology and learn their stuff. So his first instinct is like, well, Dad's already here. He's seen it. Who else gets to see it? And he's ready to give it to the world because John Crichton is worldly and he's seen beyond our own planet. And he's like, yeah, you give it to everyone. Why wouldn't you? And his dad is like, no, but we found it.
And then John's like, Dad, what's going on? And then Dad's like, well, 9/11.
He says 9/11 happened, and I was so happy that they finally just said it, because this show has existed in a post 9/11 world for about a little under 2 years at the point that this episode aired. And it's like, yeah, that is the most on-point metaphor for the way that John interacts with the aliens and the way that the Earthlings are afraid of them. Like, they just say it, and they're like, yeah, the reason that we want to hold on to this is because America is afraid of outsiders, because they don't deserve this, and we found it. 9/11. And it's like,
it's like, oh, jeez.
We've crossed the Rubicon. There was a point before this where we probably would have given it to everyone, but not anymore. And that was both really sad and really refreshing, I guess, to see it reflected in the show in not a way that felt like ripped from the headlines kind of thing.
Right, exactly. It came up when it was relevant, and it wasn't, like, it didn't have to be the point, because you could kind of, like, if this happened at any point in American history, if the American characters were presented with this huge finding, they would probably still act the same way, where it's like, it's ours, nobody else can have it. But adding the aspect of linking it to 9/11 made it feel much more believable, much more immediate, without forcing it. Because It's like, we didn't write this because we wanted to make a point about 9/11. It's just like, that's the current iteration of American xenophobia that has its iterations throughout American history. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful way to tie in Farscape's messages about knowledge seeking and inclusiveness and travel, and feeling like an outsider, all of these things, tying it into this historical narrative of kind of the paradox between immigration and sort of the positives that you may associate with that, and xenophobia.
Yeah, you can imagine there are plenty other points in history where they could have slotted in this plot and, in a different show. But yeah, this is Farscape. This is the early 2000s space show, and this is the thing that they need to tackle. I'm actually curious because I never really got into what Star Trek had going on at this point. But what were the show's contemporary sci-fi shows doing at this point? Because I know BSG definitely handled foreign alien xenophobia stuff, not as much. But I don't even know I think Voyager might have been ending. I don't always forget. Yeah, Voyager ended in 2001. So, they probably had... No, it ended in May of 2001. So they just missed the boat on that. And I think that was... And then Enterprise was 01 to 05. So maybe Enterprise handled this stuff. But, point is, this show does it really well. And I really appreciated that. What this episode doesn't do very well is the whole Greyza plot.
Yeah, let's just get that going.
Let's brush that under. We saw last episode that Greyza and our boy Braco were on the ship, and she has a secret stealth alien on Moya, and the stealth alien lands on Earth with everybody else, and then almost kills DK and DK's girlfriend, or does kill them. Is that accurate?
I think they did get killed. Didn't they get killed?
In the parking garage, right?
Yeah, what a terrible end to DK.
Seriously. This other woman, we barely knew you, but
he was one of our Olympians, and he was mauled in a nameless parking garage
by a Power Rangers villain.
It was yes. It looked like if one of the Raku from Bionicles did it with a Power Ranger. Deep cut, huh?
Never stop Referencing Bionicle on podcast. Never ever stop. You do you, my friend. It's whatever. That villain, I don't even know what it was called. It was like Grace's puppet. It's the thing itself is super dumb looking, and then they kill it by dropping a chandelier on it in the Christmas house, which is what I'm going to call that building.
I know.
But and they kill it with the chandelier, and then what was the other thing I was going to say about it? Oh, it has the way that Grace communicates with it is probably the coolest thing about it.
I thought that was.
You want to talk about
that? Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny and also like twisted. I think this is a cooler way to do the sort of Greyza twisted sexuality thing than they have been doing it. Basically, this like thing has been sent by Greyza, and it seems like kind of a mindless monster, but in fact, it's more of a bounty hunter type figure. And what does she open? She's with Braca, and she like opens a box or something, or has like a thing with her.
The like silly putty or whatever.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, what's that?" And she says it would take too long to explain, and then just hits it onto his head, and now it's speaking through him in kind of a weird thing. Yep. That must have been fun to act out.
Right, because he's clearly just being dubbed over by the other actor, I think. And he's just like, blah, 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 blah. Like he's becoming the puppet, if you will. Ooh. And she's talking to him. And then, you were talking about the whole Grey's sexuality thing. The weirdest thing about it is she's talking to him being like, oh, go catch them, go sneak around. And then when she's done, the way that she lets Braca go back to being Braca is she pulls it off, but not before like putting him in a compromising position that looks like they just had sex.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Where am I?" And she's like, "Oh, you fell asleep. We just had we had like good sex on the floor in front of it, like a bunch of people."
It was great.
You were really good, because she also does the like her pheromone thing on him, so that he's definitely like feeling the afterglow. He's like, "Oh, I feel like I just had sex." I don't know what that's like, but it was kind of messed up. I'm laughing about it, like kind of like out of pain, because it's like, oh my god,
yeah,
this is weird. And they kind of want it to be a little bit funny, but it's messed up. It's like implied,
I think they want it to be a little bit funny and a little bit messed up.
That's so kind of Farscape,
Yeah, it lands for me better than the instances when she's. I mean, you can still argue that she's obviously having a very abusive effect on Braca, because she's making him think that this happened and he doesn't remember it, and he probably didn't want it. So that's messed up. But it's still, I mean, it's just a funny idea, I guess. That he wakes up and it's like, oh, you were great. Like the whole "you were great" part of it is what's funny, appealing to his ego. The part of it that isn't funny is like, we had sex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's predatory in a very Greyza way, and I don't know. It's like it makes sense for her, but I still was just like, oh, come on, gross, Farscape. I keep saying I want more out of Greyza. I want bigger things out of Greyza. I don't want her to just keep manipulating Braca, because he deserves better, and that turn needs to happen sooner than later. But I don't know.
Well, now I think it's okay. Now that we know that Braca's cool, he's still cool.
Right.
Then everything that Greyza does to him just means that we're building up to like his retribution against her.
Right. Maybe he like finds out about all of this and then just like goes off. Ooh, yeah, I'd be into it. Okay, so I think we should also talk real briefly. Just this is like a quick thing. Erin's son in this episode is great. Mm-hmm. She's in all jeans, everything. You texted me like the night you watched the episode and you said, "Dude, Erin's wearing jeans." And I was like, ha ha ha, they're on Earth. Of course she's wearing jeans. But I didn't know to what extent she was wearing jeans. We're talking jeans pants, jeans suspenders. She's more denim than woman at some point. I guess that's as good a way to adjust to early 2000s fashion as any. But it it makes me laugh because in Kansas she went full 60s fashion, and then in this she went like full like Monica on Friends fashion. It was so good.
Yeah, she's just a little too late to the game.
Always, yeah, exactly. It makes sense because you're like she's pulling out someone's old clothes. Like I think those were like Caroline's old or Olivia's old clothes,
right?
And at the end when she's leaving, she's like
that the costume designers are making there.
Right, and then she's like, "Do you want these back?" And Olivia's like, "No, these are dumb. I don't want these," or something. But the reason I also wanted to bring her up was that she has like a nice couple of moments with Caroline, the actual Caroline, John's ex, because they have moments where he's like, "Oh, didn't you miss?" She comes up to him in his house and she says, "Oh, didn't you miss your girlfriend?" She jumps on him and kisses him, and then Aaron sees it from the back, and you're like, come on, Farscape, don't.
The way that they handled the Caroline Aaron stuff in this episode actually really bugged me, because Aaron was reduced to this like kind of, I don't know, like doe-eyed. It just felt like she belonged as like a side character in an episode of Freaks and Geeks or something.
Yeah.
Like it had that vibe of like, oh man, like he'll never like me. Does he like me? Oh, he likes you. He likes me? Yeah, he does like you. Wow, that's great. It's like, get out of here. I
think what I ended up liking about it was that it didn't like there was no fight. There was no like hair pulling.
I don't want to make it sound like I don't like Freaks and Geeks. I love Freaks.
Oh, dude, Freaks and Geeks is like one of my favorite shows of all time. Like everyone should watch Freaks and Geeks. Yeah. Anyway. Freaks and Geeks, best show. No, but they didn't like get into a fight over it. There was that moment in the back of like the backyard where in the back of the backyard or the yard, if you will, where where Aaron and Caroline are like, hey, or Caroline's like, hey, you like him, don't you? And then Aaron's like, I can't tell you I don't, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they're like, do you want to just he likes you more. And you're like, Aaron's like, oh, I guess, yeah, okay, if you say so. Anyways, like it's kind of fine. I'm butchering that scene, by the way. It's a very nice scene. Good performances all around. But point is, they're not fighting anymore. They're like, okay, he has been with me long enough and had more profound experiences with me than you. Whatever, you can have him. And Caroline's very mature about that, and I appreciated that.
Yeah.
From Farscape.
The Christmas stuff was also cute.
Yeah, I felt very Die Hard, or just like Christmas themed movies. Or there's just like Christmas stuff going on, but since this is Florida, it's not snowing,
right, or
anything. Yeah, I love a good. We're getting to that time again of the year where we can start getting Christmas themed stuff, and I love the way that different shows and movies like theme things around Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next? Oh yeah, there's a lot of like John voiceover that's also really cool, where it's like, oh, the gang is kind of adjusting well or not well, and everyone's telling me how different I am. They're right. They don't have a clue why. They can't know what I've seen. Like he like says in the theme song almost.
Yeah.
I can't tell them what I've seen because they wouldn't believe me. And then there's that really great part where it's like, here's what the government is doing, because it's a very important thing in the story. Is like, hey, what does the government think about all of this? And he mentions that some, but not all, of the dignitaries and the people that like were, big higher ups. Only some of them accepted translator microbes. So he'd see moments where like John or Dargo is sitting at a table across from an old gentleman, and the gentleman like gets jabbed in the leg with a DRDs, which is weird seeing DRDs on Earth, by the way. He gets the microbe and they like talk, and you're like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Like that's how it would be handled. Is some of them would be like, sure, I want to talk to him, and then some of them would not.
Just on the topic of two kind of responses. First of all, translator microbes would be amazing to have on Earth. It would really be a big help in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
Totally change Earth diplomacy. We'll talk about that in a second. The other thing, everything looks weird on Earth. DRDs look weird. Chiana's makeup looks like it's paint.
I mean, it is,
like it really shows in this kind of... when it's not in low light, it looks super, super like it's a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Because when it's in low light, it looks great. It looks really natural and good. But in this kind of like searing Florida noon sunlight, it looks really fake. And then same with Sikozu.
Oh yeah. When they were sunbathing, it looked really bad.
Yep.
Exactly. That's why it was weird that the cousin was filming them. Like, what are you? They're just women with like gross faces. Stop.
Yeah. The diplomacy thing is interesting to me. I don't know. Just thinking about like, I wonder if we're gonna come back, because we seem to be left with the impression that like John has kind of dropped this thing in their lap, saying, "Hey, I can get some people into space. I kind of want it to be like a cool bunch of smart people from all over the world to come hang out with me and make an Earth colony. But you guys got to figure it out. Okay, bye." So I wonder if we're going to come back to Earth and see how the like presence of aliens has shifted anything about Earth. Like, what if he comes back and there's like a big war going on? Whoops.
Like an information war of like, we deserve that tech and we're going to fight you over it. Yeah, those are all possibilities, man. And I think that is a good point I didn't even consider, is if they could follow up on this at some point. Because I just thought that the dark sort of like Twilight Zone-esque twist of that, I guess, is that he goes, oh, maybe someday we'll all be less xenophobic, and he could come back like 50 years later and be like, nope, still terrible.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of like I thought that was like the cynical point they were going for, is like he's going to come back later and it's going to be nothing different, which would make me sad, but it's kind of true. I don't know. I do think, though, that seeing the aliens has to push it in one direction or another, for sure.
Right.
But don't let us know if they go back, because we're very close to the end and we don't want to be spoiled. Thank you. I liked Chiana's outfit in that speech that Jack has at the end when he's like, hey, we should all be chill to each other. Frel. And they're like, what do you mean Frel? And he's like, I can't say the other word on this cast. Because he kind of is doing the like Independence Day speech. He's like, we're all together and we are one people, and like let's just be chill, please. Can we be chill? And Chiana's got like a cool skirt and leggings combo going on there that I liked. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to just find his speech and read a bit of it here.
Oh, please, yeah. Magellan, would you like to read this scene, actually? Because it's a really good one.
Yeah. So we're kind of hobnobbing, hanging out. John actually calls this, or Chiana says, Crichton, this isn't a very fun party. And John says, it's not supposed to be a party. It's a photo op for VIPs. Smile. Great. Good job, humans. Can't even have a fun party. Then Jack says,
of course not.
Could I have everybody's attention? Ding, 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 ding. John says, here comes my fellow Americans. And then Jack goes into this speech. And he says, I once told my son he'd get the chance to become his own kind of hero. Well, he got it. And he made the most of it. I also taught him to stick to his guns when he thought he was right. So I can't fault him when he does. I've heard it said that he should accept our judgment over his, because he owes us. And then there's shots of like some government guys being mad. And that continues throughout the whole thing. I've even said it myself. We're wrong. Look at the friends he discovered, the miracles he brought, and then ask yourself what he owes us as compared to what we owe him. Now John insists that we share these wonders with the rest of the world, but some people are afraid of what'll happen if we do. John's afraid of what'll happen if we don't, and I'll go with that. And then John's kind of looking at him like, hey, Dad, you're doing a good job.
Dad.
So as ISA's project director... What a terrible name. Sorry. So as ISA project director for extraterrestrial studies, I hereby invite all nations to participate in the ongoing Farscape mission. Yay!
Yay! Yeah, he really does genuinely want them to work together after talking about it with his son.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put a pause on that, and they're like, oh, it's Christmas Eve, and then they just gotta take care of this dumb alien. So, yeah, we have a cute little fight scene.
Sleigh bells ringing.
Yeah.
I'm an alien.
I'm going to ruin... It's so... there's something I didn't like about that scene, is they make a point to emphasize how unfortunate it is that the alien ruined Christmas dinner. And that's such a, like, annoyingly American thing. To be like, he broke the table. Oh, and the roast beef is gonna be ruined.
There's a fucking alien in the house.
Oh no!
He's trying to kill us.
Ding ding ding.
Sorry, Fred.
There you go. No, yeah, it's like it's just very American of them.
Priorities.
And yeah, totally. But Aaron and John make up their differences. Aaron was about to cry, and they were about to have yet another like, "Do you really like me?" conversation, and then the alien is like, shut up. Which I actually good on the alien for stopping that conversation.
They about to kiss? I feel like they were about to kiss.
Oh, they were about to. They were about to have a nice conversation. I'm sorry. It's been a lot. People don't know. It's been a little while since we've watched.
Been a while.
Yeah, they beat up the alien. They drop a chandelier on it. Boom, dead alien. R.I.P. alien. R.I.P. alien. Yeah, and then we have a brief Scorpius scene that I liked where he's talking to Sakozu, and they do a thing that made me think. It made me feel things inside. Mm-hmm. This is actually before the scene that we're talking about. He grabs her by the neck. Yeah. In like a sexually dominating kind of way. And I was like, Scorpius, you read from the book of like the what's the book? The Kama Sutra, like the un-Kama Sutra. Like, you are not about making the other person comfortable and feeling entwined with each other's bodies. You are about choking and kissing on the forehead and more choking and more leather. That is how you treat sexuality. Good.
Well, the cool thing about it is they're talking about, like, he's talking about this idea of blowing himself up in the mouth of the wormhole if he needs to, so that Grayza can't get to John.
Yeah.
And Sakozu's like, ooh, well, it might be better if two people blow themselves up. And he's like, yeah, you want to see how the bomb works? She's like, yeah, I want to see how the bomb works. And then he just grabs her neck. It's like, okay.
Cool. Would you like to observe the sequence? And then he chokes her. And you're like...
That's the line.
Would you like to observe the sequence? No, I don't want to observe. Like, what? Not this way. They're probably both way into that. That was a good moment.
Yeah.
I almost said she would probably be into that in a really gross, like, kind of nasty way. But no, yeah, that's their thing. Rock and roll. Chiana drinks a bunch of champagne. No shame in any ways. He grabs her neck. Chiana guzzles some champagne. There's one Asian in this entire episode, which was like, hey, cool. They were like a dignitary at one point during the speech. Someone says, let me look this line up so I can get it exactly right. There it is. Dargo says, oh yeah, Chiana's like, what's wrong with you guys? Why are you still scared of us? Like, talking about the Agent Holt or whatever. And then later they're in the parking garage and they have no Secret Service following them. This is referring to Dargo and Chiana. And he says, don't you know that all humans are bigots? They fight even amongst their own species. Mm-hmm. Which is both like, hey, Farscape gets it, but also Nabari and Sebastians like do that a lot. Everyone else does that.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, just that phrase, like, don't you know humans are bigots, is such a bigoted thing to say.
All humans are bigots. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit ironic, but it was still like, ooh, nice Dargo. You get it. What else? Then there was that thing. Oh, and then there's the final scene. Let's wrap it up here. There was a cute hug. There was a hug. Mm. This scene almost made me cry, dude. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Because Olivia, they're near the beach, and Olivia gives John their mom's ring or the diamond wedding ring. Mm-hmm. And then do you want to just end by doing this scene, and then we'll do background info right after?
Let's do it.
So Olivia comes in and she's like, do you want to be Jack or John?
I'll be Jack.
Okay, keeping up consistency.
Yeah.
Excellent. John is talking to Olivia and he says, I have to go. You take care. And then Jack is like,
stay. Look, we'll guard the wormhole. We'll We'll set up a defense shield. Nothing will get through.
No, I have a job to do. It's your words again.
I don't want to lose you, son. I can't shake this feeling that you're not coming back.
I'll be back. That's a promise. You take care of my home.
It's a promise. Take care of yourself.
Oh my god, again, like just, it's not even that beautifully written, it's just, there's something, okay, there's a difference between well written in like the Dargo saying all humans are bigots way, where it's like, ooh yeah, good zinger, and then there's like well written in the way that this scene is, where it totally feels like you've heard this conversation happen before, like when someone goes off to war, or when they go like on a really long trip, something like that, where it's just like, I can totally, or when you have parents who are much older and you leave them, like you move somewhere and you have that goodbye with them of like, I might never see you again. And there is something heartbreaking about that to me. Yeah. I don't know why. I think I'm a sucker for like parents stuff always. But it's just so like, oh God, Farscape, you got me right in there, right in the good spots. And it was just, yeah, what a moment to end on. And it kind of like reinvigorates like all right, we need to get back to business next week. Because we had a lot of fun on Earth, we had a lot of political fun, and now it's time to do our space adventures next week. So, with that in mind, I think it's time for us to move on to the background information.
You better believe it is. Background information. Pilot does not appear in this episode, though he is referenced.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I didn't notice either.
Huh.
After numerous false starts, John Crichton sets foot on his Earth for the first time since Premiere.
That's a good point.
One of the alternate titles for this episode was Screeth on Earth, Goodwill to All Men. What?
What? Screeth is the name of the alien.
Oh, no.
Peace on Earth, Goodwill to All Men.
No.
So dumb. I know.
The fight between the Screeth, Crichton, and Aaron was originally going to finish with the house being destroyed. The production was going to use an actual building slated for demolition and finish the job. Stop it. Your priorities are wrong.
That's ridiculous. We found a building that they were going to blow up, and we just wanted to finish blowing it up.
Guys, I love this conversation between John and Jack at the end of the episode. It's not really there, but we can get back to it later. Let's talk about Screeth. I think we really got to hammer home this Screeth stuff.
Can it blow a house up? Yes, no.
Ugh. David Franklin stated that he did not know what accent he would use when being possessed by the Screeth until they began actually shooting the scene. So he wasn't dubbed. That was the Brackus actor doing.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. According to the script, the episode begins during the fall of 2013. 2013.
Whoa.
2003 and ends on Christmas Eve. Oh, so they're there for a while.
Oh yeah. I mean that's why it makes sense that Chiana and Sikozu were by the pool, because you wouldn't go to the pool like the first day you land on Earth. You'd be like, what is this?
Yeah, that's true.
What is pool?
Ben Browder nominates this as one of his favorite episodes of season 4 and of the series because it took the risk of taking Crichton back to the real Earth. Yeah, I
agree. Ben Browder. Ben.
The exterior shots of the cruise mansion were filmed at Abbotsford, just down the Parramatta River from the home studios of Homebush. Okay? The line, Merry Frelling Christmas, was an ad-lib by Claudia Black. Nice.
Sometimes that's easy to tell. And that was one of those moments where I was like, I feel like you improv this. Good shit.
The Screeth was deliberately colored green as an homage to Dr. Seuss's The Grinch.
Oh, wait a minute. No. Dude, when I read that, I'm so mad.
Oh, he does look like the Grinch.
When I read that first, I was like, that's such a dumb reference. Oh my God, it's Christmas. Oh, and then I got really mad. I just realized that right now.
That's kind of good.
Yeah, now it makes it a little better. A little bit. Yeah.
Although Sikozu is shown capable of eating almost anything 10 times a cycle, she doesn't seem to like apples.
Sikozu and I disagree there. I love a good apple.
Mm-hmm. A deleted scene in which Erin introduced herself and her shipmates to the humans emphasized the fact they'd learned some English during the events of Kansas.
Kansas.
How upset do you think she was to learn that there are a bunch of Earth languages?
She's like, I finally learned English, and then she goes anywhere else, and she's like, damn it.
All you humans don't speak the same language?
And they're like, let me introduce you to Spanish. Yeah, Spanish would have probably been the language for her to learn. I think it's, a little bit more common. I don't know. Or English. English is pretty much the closest to a universal. Just a couple of more years and we'll all be speaking Esperanto. Okay, so the next segment has to change. Majan, I'm putting my foot down. We're not taking a side detour. We're not going on to a new planet. Planet Netflix is dead. We blew it up.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
In actuality, yep, it's a lot of good people died finding us the information about Planet Netflix. We learned a lot of the good stuff from its inhabitants, and we all came out of it better people, I think. But in actuality, Netflix is removing Farscape from their service in the beginning of November. And in protest, and to avoid spoiling future episodes, we're not going to do Planet Netflix anymore. We're not going to read their summaries. We're not going to look on their website and try to watch stuff.
I'm sorry, guys. I know you love... Listen, I know your favorite part of every episode was, what are those boys going to do for their Planet Netflix sound effects today? What are they going to do?
Are they going to make? Are they going to beep? Are they going to tap the table? Are they going to scream weirdly?
Are they going to ruffle a piece of paper? I don't know, but I want to find out.
I think we're gonna come out of this a lot better. I really think we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to? There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of options we have. I guess the best option for us right now is to read the Farscape Encyclopedia Project's top page summaries, because those don't seem too bad. Do you want to give those a shot?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, I think this will be good for us.
It's going to take me a second to open it.
Deep breaths, man. You can do it.
Okay. So, for next week, we're watching 2 episodes of Farscape. We're watching Season 4, Episode 14, Twice Shy. Chiana convinces the others to allow an imprisoned woman to stay on Moya. They quickly discover, however, that she's far more trouble than she's worth. But with their best qualities gone, can they do anything about it?
That's way better. That's like a good, doesn't ruin anything, but I'm kind of interested. And it's a Chiana episode, I guess. Neato.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I don't think any character on the show is less trouble than they're worth. You know what I mean?
They're all worth exactly as much trouble as other. Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a hard idiom to like repurpose.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Anyway, the second episode we're watching is Season 4, Episode 15, Mental as Anything. When Scorpius brings the boys of Moya to receive special training from an individual named Katoya, Ka Dargo comes face to face with his wife's murderer, Macton Tal. But Macton claims he didn't kill Lola Tal, his sister. It was Dargo himself who did it during one of his uncontrollable hyper-rages. Though reluctant to believe him and insistent he did not, Dargo still can't help but wonder.
That's a Dargo episode. Also, the term, the Boys of Moya that's actually my favorite Don Henley song. So, I forget how it goes.
Guess who just got microbes today? Them wide-eyed boys that have been away. The whole song is the same, except I just put in the word microbes, and that's.
You're right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So I think that is a good replacement for our Planet Netflix segment. R.I.P. That's the R.I.P. music. Yeah. So I think we should just real quickly wrap up this very fun episode of ScapeChatz with some plugs.
Yeah.
You can follow ScapeChatz on Twitter at ScapeChatz, like the show. We also have a Tumblr, scapechats.tumblr.com, and an email, scapechats@gmail.com. We're all about that SEO. I'm a little bit off the grid in a way right now, so you can follow me at twitter.com/Alan Ibrahim, spelled ALLENIBRAHIM, but I won't follow you back anytime soon, and I probably won't respond because social media can get a little overwhelming sometimes here in the not exactly uncharted territories. Although, my partner in crime Magellan can be found on Twitter
That's right. You can find me on Twitter at JustAFluke. That's JUSTAPFLUKE. I usually just go on there to read tweets from my favorite political commentators. But sometimes I also tweet.
And you do goofs. He does good goofs.
I love goofs.
Can I get a quick goof to send us out?
Hey, you talking about a guy walking in the store? He's going to ring the bell on the way in. Where do you think they sold that bell?
Where?
At a bell store. So here's my question. If that bell at the bell store was for sale.
Okay. Oh. This has been ScapeChatz, finding our way home.